on the wet tyre. He's going to charge down from 5th to 1st over the curbs.
Round 3 of DTM 2026 is bound to be a boiling affair, as Europe is melting through yet another midsummer heatwave. So it's almost a bit cynical that DTM's teams and drivers are limited to 3 instead of 4 sets of tires this weekend. Quite the headache, considering Pirelli's new rubber might cause some issues because of the heat. As far as BoP is concerned, we can use DTM's official test at the beginning of June as a bit of a baseline. Around the former Eurospeedway Lausitz, it was the Ford duo of Finn Wiebelhaus and Arjun Maini who impressed the most, ahead of Thomas Preining in his Porsche and the 2 windward Mercedes. However, other than potential sandbagging on all fronts, temperatures for said tests were around 20 degrees Celsius. In contrast, this weekend we'll see them rise to about 30 degrees Celsius plus. Not what Ford wants to hear with their well-known tire struggles. Nevertheless, their BoP has not changed compared to the test, whereas BMW and Ferrari have to run 10 more kilograms of ballast. Ferrari's an especially noteworthy case, as Emil Frey's technical director Jörg Flach is said to be far from happy with the added weight or the higher minimum rear wing angle. This combo should impact the 296 Evo's top speed around the old Champ Car venue. Well, at least their boost pressure has been increased in the mid-rev range, though lowered in the high rev range. Other than Emil Frey, Der Motorsport and Come To You Racing are less than thrilled with how their respective GT3s are rated compared to the last round at Zandvoort and last year's Lausitz Adventures. The main challenge for all involved, balancing the high-speed sections of the old oval and the twisty infield, low-grip, slippery, bumpy to the core, and shimmering with a summer's blazing sun. In terms of favorites, Mercedes' Lukas Auer and championship leader Maro Engel should always be considered as candidates. Same goes for confirmed Sonic superfan Thomas Preining in his Porsche, or the BMW duo of Marco Wittmann and ice cream enthusiast Kelvin van der Linde. Saturday qualifying saw no BoP changes compared to Friday, where Engel and Auer managed to clinch the fastest times ahead of Meini's Ford, Preining's Porsche, and Deur's, well, Deux McLaren. But as much as all of them had impressed in testing, none of them were to top the all-important pre-race session. Out of nowhere, Niki Team pushed his Aston Martin Vantage onto pole position 62 thousandths of a second ahead of Maini in second, with Lukas Auer qualifying his shoebox in third. With Jules Guenon in P4 and Maro Engel in P5, Mercedes is in a perfect position to pounce. Thomas Preining will be disappointed in 12th, though his place is not nearly as horrific as P18 and P19 for the BMWs. Alexis Core fun fact, the entire grid from P1 to P21 is covered by less than a second around the Lausitzring. And as if that wasn't thrilling enough, suddenly, the sunny skies of the Lausitz turn into a dark vortex of thunder and rain. In turn, the start has to be delayed, though the track seems to dry rather quickly. As a result, some drivers elect to start on wet tires, while others gamble on smooth Pirelli slicks. Depending on how the weather changes, this could become the deciding factor for the afternoon. After 2 formation laps, the race is go, with an immediate advantage for those running wets. In turn, pole sitter team is dropping back as Tom Kalenda is spun around into turn 1. Everybody's fighting the tricky conditions, with rookie Bastian Boos spinning into the gravel before the end of the lap. He was on wet tires, not on slicks. Ouch. Safety car deployed, everybody calming down before the storm, the track slowly but surely drying out as Kalenda is headed for the pits, changing from wets the slicks. This does not count as his mandatory pit stop. We are still outside the pit window, but he could serve as the perfect test mule for the current track conditions. Auer is leading the race ahead of Gunnar, Engel, Meini, Cairoli, Wiebelhaus, Preining, Engstler, Bortolotti, and van der Linde, all of them on wets. Restart time. Gunnar and Engel are fighting it out immediately with a duel spectators in the stands will adore. The field's pretty much split in half. The first 12 drivers on wet rubber, the rest chugging along on slicks. And while Cairoli is using his experience to go around the outside of Maro Engel for third, Kalenda is putting in fastest lap after fastest lap. Obviously, the track is starting to favor slicks as Nicky Thiem is climbing up the order again. He's going past Preining and Engstler easily, no chance for either of them to defend. Where drivers like Kalenda can post 127s, Lukas Auer's leading the field with a malaise of 132s. Once DTM's personal Viking is past Auer, he sets off into the distance, his Aston Martin performing as well as it did in qualifying. It's important to note that while most other slick runners are now making a mockery of their wet-tired opposition, Thiem still manages to build a gap to them as well. This group includes Mappelli, Wittmann, Vermeulen, or Ben Deur. With 35 minutes to go, the pit window has officially opened, and unsurprisingly, every single one of the wet runners is headed for the pits, except for Jules Gunnar. See, Winward seemingly didn't want to double stack, with Gunnar having to spend another agonizing lap around the tri-oval infield. Alexis Core fun fact number 2. Gunnar was actually ahead of Maro Engel before the championship leader went into the pits. So you'd generally expect them to call Gunnar in first, you know? So, wait, is that Glock? Well, you f***ing bet it is. DTM's luckiest driver experiences another day to forget, seeing as all of it is bad luck, I'm afraid. Technical gremlins have been plaguing his car all weekend, and this is just the cherry on top of a Sunday. It's not even Sunday, it's Saturday. Now we'd expect the DTM officials to either A, call for another safety car, B, ignore the situation entirely, or C, deploy a full course yellow, neutralizing the race so that everybody's running 80 kph. Then again, DTM tends to wait for all drivers to actually make their pit stops until they throw anything, as the pits are closed during full course yellows. Thiem, Vermeulen, and Paul pit immediately with no signs of a full course yellow. Race direction is still waiting in turn, and now there's a full course wait a minute, there's 3 cars in the pits. How did they get there? Mappelli, Deur, and Fella. The rest of the field has slowed down to 80 kph already. You're not allowed to pit under full course yellow, but seeing as all 3 were in the pits before it had been deployed, it was legal. And it counts as their mandatory tire stop. And because they're going 60 while all others on track are going 80, whereas normally they would go up to 250 kph, they're losing next to no time. Unsurprisingly, for all equipped with functioning eyes or a calculator, they come out way ahead of the field, around, 22 seconds to be precise. Mappelli, Deur, Fella, that's your undisputed top 3 after the pit stops, with a gargantuan gap to the rest. Looking back, calling for the full course yellow a bit later or not at all would have been less disruptive, as everything would have stayed the same and nobody would have gained or lost anything. Through this mess, 3 drivers gained over 20 seconds because of what is considered to be an unnecessary call by some. To bring back an old catchphrase of mine, DTM is often known for its bullshit. Right after all of this, Engel decides to take a trip into the gravel, losing valuable positions in the midfield. While the top 3 are now fighting for what was considered to be an unlikely win and 2 Lambos drop out of the race, DTM has another rule-related ace up its sleeve. Maximilian Paul, Riccardo Feller, Tom Kalender, Jules Guenard, Marco Mappelli, and Mauro Engel are alleged to have gone too quickly under full course yellow, a case which is to be solved after the race. Hey, at least you get to watch Engel and Preining hustle it out into turn 1. According to motorsporttotal.com, they're not the best of friends, so those of you looking for some sweet interpersonal racing-themed beef, there you have it. According to Preining, they haven't spoken in years, and such tough duels between the two are basically the norm nowadays.
Mauro Engel and Thomas Preining to change positions.
Right.
We saw that move and they decided that's a fair way of doing it. Just say, okay, give it back, try again.
Mauro Engel has let Thomas Preining back through, but not for long. He dives back down the inside again, onto the curbs. Hard racing, the German versus the Austrian, but Preining is not going to give the position up easily, is he? The Porsche still just ahead, a right-hander coming up. Porsche stays there. Contact between the pair of them again.
This is for P14, by the way.
When he changes our direction, Jesus Christ, I need to crash right into the back of him. Come on.
It's quite the sight to see the once lambasted Lamborghini cross the line in first. Marco Mappelli is celebrating as though he won the race, with the investigation still going on. And Feller with him on the podium, no signs of doubt on anybody's face. It would take quite a few hours until we knew the winner, and it wasn't Mappelli. After the race, Mappelli received a 15-second time penalty for going too fast under a full-course yellow. Apparently, he hadn't pressed his limiter properly, according to Abt. Same goes for Riccardo Feller, though he stays in third. Same goes for Engel and Paul. Same doesn't go for Kalender or Guenard, as they're let off the hook for mitigating circumstances. Vermeulen also received a penalty post-race for a collision with Finn Wiebelhaus. So, Banjo is declared the winner. His first victory in DTM with no appropriate celebration, ahead of Mappelli, Feller, Niki Thiem, and Marco Wittmann. Lukas Auer, Jules Guenard, Matteo Cairoli, Arjun Maini, and KVDL round out the top 10, with Kalender, Preining, Vermeulen, Paul, and Engel the final points scorers.
Ja, ich meine, für mich schon bitter, für Niki überbitter, weil wir sind ja alle mit dem Full Course Yellow kaputt gemacht worden. Ja. Also, wo ja Leute haben uns ja overcuttet. Also jeder, was riskant unterwegs war und top unterwegs war, wurde bestraft und deswegen ist sehr ernüchternd das Ergebnis.
In conclusion, DTM stumbled into a controversial full-course yellow, an array of penalties that took hours to finalize, and no shortage of criticism from all ends. Whether it's the way the race was managed, TV direction missing important maneuvers, or the fact that one of the series' rising stars missed out on a proper first win celebration, Sunday morning could only be an improvement, with slight BOP changes announced. While Mercedes has to grapple with more weight and a smaller air restrictor, Aston Martin is dealing with 5 kilograms of ballast and significantly reduced boost pressure. Ford's Mustang finalizes this trio, with their air restrictor decreased by a single millimeter. All 3 brands remained competitive in qualifying regardless, with Arjun Maini putting his HRT GT3 on pole position, Thiem right behind in third, Wiebelhaus and a Ford rounding out the top 4. Only the pink Ferrari of Matteo Cairoli threw a spanner into the mix, though admittedly, 7 different brands made up the top 8, as pointed out by Sven Heidinger on motorsporttotal.com. If anything, Jules Guenard in 12th, Lukas Auer in 13th, or Banjo in 14th might be a tad disappointed. That said, some drivers do have an advantage irrespective of grid position. As I mentioned, there are only 3 sets of tires available per driver this weekend. Seeing as this goes for both qualifying and the race, most will have had to use their final new set of rubber for Sunday quali if this was a dry weekend. But seeing as many chose to start yesterday's race on wets, they've got one more fresh set of boots ready to strike. Drivers who retired early, like Finn Wiebelhaus, effectively have 2 of them on standby. On the flip side, all dry runners like Wittmann, Thiem, Feller, and Vermeulen are in for a tough afternoon. The race is go. No turmoil into turn 1 this time, with Maini defending his lead from Cairoli and team. Most runners in front are on fresh-ish rubber, as those qualifying in the top 10 need to use their tires from said session. Many other drivers elect to start on older slicks, though an early safety car for debris out on track throws a slight delay into the mix. After the restart, everything stays static, the simmering summer sun playing the exact main role which had been lost on Saturday. In this heat, De is defending bravely from Thomas Preining, the McLaren driver dealing with 20 kilograms of success ballast, as Sönke Brüderlo points out in his race report. Still, the 2023 DTM champion cannot get past the youngster. Once the first of 2 pit windows opens up, quite a few midfielders decide to pit, led by the front-running Ford of Wiebelhaus. With his access to 2 more fresh sets, he attempts an undercut on the top 3. Cairoli's in the pits a lap after, same as Wittmann and Preining. Through the undercut, Mr. Porsche is able to get by De. Same goes for Kelvin van der Linde in his BMW. Maini's in the pits, but HRT fumbles his stop just enough to where Cairoli can extract all pace available through his Pirellis and push for P1.
And he's going to go for it here. Arjun's going to make that Mustang even wider than it already is, but the Ferrari comes through.
Oh, he goes
deep into the corner. Right-hander coming up. Don't panic. He's got the line. He's got the net lead of the race.
Alexis Core fun fact. Number 3. After the race, Maini was to admit that he actually missed his pit box by quite a bit, so we can't put all the blame on the HRT pit crew, though they do have a tendency to fumble pit stops from time to time. Now it's up to team to push his chewed-up rubber up front. The Viking, the last of the front runners, still on track with his first set. Behind the top 4, it's an all-out brawl. Engel, Engstler, Bortolotti, Wittmann, Preining, and van der Linde making up the top 10. Right down the field, De and Auer are fighting tooth and nail. Auer, the new championship leader after Saturday's chaos.
And out wide onto the grass with 2 wheels goes Lugi out, so he ends up losing a place to Jules Gounon. He's now like a rocket ship charging around the outside of Ben Durr in the McLaren. He has fired up Jules Gounon. Things have just not worked out for him this season.
What does work out is his maneuver around Auer, as well as an overtake against Ben Durr in the infield. Gounon's been to windward what Glock has been to the Durr team thus far this year, and yet he keeps on fighting, scraping along for every point available, and, to his potential delight, teammate Maro Engel is handed a penalty lap for a pit stop infringement. TLDR, one of the pit crew members hadn't continuously held the wheel under his own power ahead of the pit stop, which is against the rules. The idea being that team personnel are always supposed to eliminate tires from a dangerous situation if need be. That's how I'd interpret the rule. In the midst of this revelation, team's in the pits and goes on to his second set. Seeing as he doesn't have any properly fresh tires anymore, he's got to lean on his Aston Martin, trying not to chew them up and spit them out. Back out on track, he slots in behind Arjun Maini in 3rd, whereas Engel's penalty lap drops him back to 10th. Okay, Gounon's still behind him, fighting with Feller, but at least... Number 48 is Jules Gounon, isn't it? Windward made the same mistake twice in a row, which means the son of former Formula 1 driver Jean-Marc Gounon is set for a penalty lap himself, after he almost f***ing obliterates Ricardo Fella. Jesus Christ! Up front, Maini is catching Cairoli bit by bit. Where Ford had started the weekend as favorites post-testing, Ferrari remained an unknown quantity. Yet, Emil Frey's complaints about BoP seem but a wash, as their new number 1 is set to take the lead in the championship. The second row of pit stops is opened by Wiebelhaus once again, though HRT continue to fumble their pit stops, losing valuable time. Maini's in the pits 2 laps after, followed by Cairoli the lap after that. And to solidify the Ferrari's blistering pace, there's not even a hint of an undercut against the GT3 veteran.
This is retirement, isn't it? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Jules Gounon, if he didn't have any bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all this season, would he?
Once again, it's Nicky Team who sticks it out up front, carrying his Pirellis beyond anything that seems reasonable while remaining competitive in terms of pace. As such, and thanks to a solid pit stop, he comes out ahead of Meiny's Mustang. Under most circumstances, you'd expect Meiny to breeze by with his tires up to temperature, but look at the tower on the left. His tires are f***ed. Instead, it's Team who's in the proverbial driver's seat now, chasing down Cairoli, burning what once was a 2.5 second gap to pretty much nothing. Wiebelhaus is on a similar trajectory, closing the distance between himself and his experienced teammate, someone whom he'd go on to describe as a mentor of his after the race. Bortolotti, Engstler, and Engel are holding station, while the two BMWs are not.
The two BMW teammates go side by side. Here we go again, just like at the Red Bull Ring. It's Kelvin van der Linde versus Marco Wittmann, and once again they trade paint, and through goes the South African. He dives at the inside of Marco Wittmann.
Note the tire advantage on screen. Considering their horrific Saturday qualifying, this is probably as good as it was gonna get for Schubert. In fact, KVDL is now sticking to the rear of Engel with only a few minutes left on the clock.
Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that Kelvin must have saved his best tyres for the end stint here, because that car is absolutely flying at the moment, and he just drives past Maro Engel and gets another place.
Similar offsets come into play between Wiebelhaus and Meiny. Finn's still the new kid on the block, unproven in the world of DTM, though heralded as a future star by veterans like Manuel Reuter. After last year's struggles for Ford's Mustang, getting any semblance of a podium with their updated GT3 would be huge. That is, if Meiny and Wiebelhaus can keep from colliding into each other.
So Nicky Tim, now can he get Aston Martin's first ever victory? They all felt robbed of the victory yesterday. They were gutted with fourth place because they did the perfect job. They took the tyre gamble on the slicks at the start. They did everything right, but they still didn't even get a podium out of it. They won a podium. They would love a race win. And here we go, Nicky Tim shows his nose, shows his intent. We know what's coming, everybody. A proper battle in the last minute plus 2 laps of this race for the lead of the race. But here comes Finn Wiebelhaus, sending one around the outside. He's got the inside line for the next corner. Bit of contact. He's up onto the podium. He can hear the crowd, 56,000 of them roaring in the background. The German driver goes through to third, and we ain't done yet. Look at Nicky Tim now, showing his nose down the inside. They're coming into the final sector. Matteo Cairoli's got to get a good run out of this corner because he knows that Aston Martin is going to come bearing down upon him when they get to the braking zone into turn 1.
After the race, both Cairoli and team referred to how tiresome this was. Glazing temperatures in the cockpit, no air conditioning to speak of for the Ferrari driver, saving every ounce of weight you can. From talking themselves down ahead of the weekend to being thrown for a thrill ride on Saturday morning, both were showing the absolute finest that DTM Duels have to offer in its GT3 guise, with the better ending for Matteo Cairoli. 13 years after scoring his first podium in German Formula 3 around the Lausitzring, Emil Frey's newest signing takes victory and the lead of the championship. Sunday's podium scenes can't be compared to the previous day's drowsy sight. It's proper smiles this time round, with next to no investigations after the race. Yes, Kelvin van der Linde was hit with a penalty after the race for colliding with Thomas Preining, but I can't show you as that wasn't shown on television. Sorry. However, the top 3 remain as they were. Meiny is scored in 4th, ahead of Bortolotti and Engstler, flying the flag for Lamborghini, Engel, Wittmann, KVDL, and Preining rounding out the top 10. Auer, Boos, Feller, Vermeulen, and Mappelli scoring the final points available. And after 3 weekends, the championship remains way too close to call on all fronts. And that is exactly what DTM wants to present. Tough duels achieved through close BoP, underlining the strategic experiments and the odd sprinkle of luck, leading to a grand spectacle in Hockenheim for its finale. If nothing else, the most depressing sight on Sunday is the Lausitzring's eerie ensemble of empty grandstands. No matter the popularity of the series, the supposed 56,000 in attendance, it looks and feels as empty and irrelevant as Germany's premier Tin Top series does from time to time. That feeling, that vibe should change for round 4 as Cairoli, team, and the rest of the field are headed for DTM's toughest challenge, the classic that is Nürburg's Norrisring, my home race.